You are listening to the Superfreakmedia Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, please be sure to show your support and follow us on our other social media platforms. Check out the links listed in the description of this episode to find out more. Thank you.
Like a fur, like a dark fur, like a horse fur, but it's just the Blair Witch with bundles. She's just got it's just a woman with really long hair. I'm talking like 70s Cher hair, and she's there like swinging it back and forth.
Inches.
She's T.S. Madison, 22 inches. The podcast where two homos called Liam look into the world of horror, get lost in the woods, meet some scary bins, and she locks us in a basement.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, that happens a lot. It happens more than you'd think, actually.
I know. That's the real life horror story there. That's the Hookup horror story for this week. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye now. But yeah, I'm excited for this episode.
Hi, gay. Happy Pride Month. We are sashaying away with deals.
Happy Pride Month, everyone. This is the first of our Pride specials that we're bringing out this month. I'm so excited for these episodes. They're going to be great.
And the LGBT community this month gets to celebrate one of our biggest icons. That is Ellie Kedward, the Blair Witch herself.
Woo! It is hot as a witch's coochie out.
Rustin Parr was probably bi.
I just want to say I'm part of the LGBTQ community.
I'm really excited for this episode because, I'm spouting a load of nonsense that some of you may not know what I'm talking about. But we're talking about the Blair Witch Project today and the subsequent films. But this is one of my favorite horror films, so I'm absolutely over the moon, and I'll tell you why it's queer in a bit, because
I'm interested to see this, to be honest, because when we had the chat and we were like, let's each pick a film, like a queer horror film or something that we really, really like. And then this was your choice. I was like, okay, have I like really missed something, or is there going to be like something that we're reaching for with this, or I don't know. So I'm excited to see how this film's queer.
I'm always reaching for something.
Hi, Daddy.
I set you up for that one, so well done. You took that well.
Usually low hanging fruit. You get my drift.
I get your drift. Yeah. Whore.
So we will be discussing the 1999 hit phenomenon, The Blair Witch Project. I think it's one of the most incredible horror films ever made, and there's only maybe 3 films that actually like petrify me, and this is number one. Like, this is the one. I haven't watched it in preparation for this because I know it off by heart, but it
just genuinely terrified.
It scares me. I don't want to sleepless night. I've got to go to the gym.
I'll be up in the gym, just working on my fitness. He's my witness.
Do we have to pay royalties to Fergie for that? Because I'm not.
I don't know. I think it was less than a 15-second clip, so I think we're fine.
The only clip of Fergie that I want to hear in this episode is whoa, 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 whoa. Can
you imagine in this film they peek out the tent and it's just Fergie in leather trousers cartwheeling by? Or it's just her. To be fair, oh my god, tenuous link. They do sing the national anthem in this film.
Oh,
they could have done the Fergie version.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
Oh, say.
There is a scene where Heather does go for a piss, and quite famously, Fergie did the same thing on stage. So
absolutely, just
whoa, 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 whoa.
It started already. That's
all I'm going to think about when I watch it next time. But maybe that'll make me less scared now.
Say, it's therapy. That's what this is. It's therapy. So you're welcome.
I've just got to give a shout out to whoever made the parody online of the Blair Witch Project before we start.
Absolutely.
That would be incredible. Imagine like you trekking through the woods, you get lost, and all you hear is like, "Hey, bitch,
snap out of it." You're welcome.
I'd shit it. That was quite a good impression. Well done.
Oh, I'm here all week. I'm here all month. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this film because I think it's a film we've both grown up with. And like you said, it kind of redefined the genre. I mean, it really did kind of start the whole found footage craze, which has dominated the last couple of decades now. So,
well, the most famous like found footage film before this would have been Cannibal Holocaust, which is a film that I don't like to talk about because it just reminds me of it just reminds me of those like edgy straight guys who were always like, oh, the best horror films in the world, like Cannibal Holocaust and a Serbian film. And it's like, it's okay, massive. Yeah.
So back to sharing the woods, yeah.
Back to sharing. No, so how can you remember the first time you watched the Blair Witch Project at all? Do you remember how old you were?
I can't remember how old I was, but I can remember it was sometime after the film had come out. Like I didn't watch it in 99, but I did. The first time I watched it was actually on DVD. I can remember it was with my mum. I think a neighbour lent it to us because they knew that I really liked horror films. And I've got to say, I really did not have the best experience with it the first time I watched it. I absolutely hated it, to be quite honest. But it's definitely a film that I've really grown to appreciate and love as I've grown older. I actually said last night when I was watching it, I said to my other half, I was like, I think this would have been the first time I actually watched the film, having like studied filmmaking and actually gone through a similar journey to like the characters in the film. I think that really made it quite terrifying because I have so many experiences in the woods at night shooting movies that are so similar. You're welcome. I don't know. I think that helped me enjoy it maybe a little bit more. It's one of those films which is weird, like you said. I think, the more I've watched it, I think the scarier it gets. I noticed like sounds this time around that I'd not noticed at all the first time. And I think the performances have actually really grown on me as well. But what about you? How did you get into it?
So I remember quite vividly, I was driving back from my auntie's house. It was like quite late at night and we were driving. If anybody knows the route, shout out. It's from Stoke-on-Trent to Manchester. You can drive through, rather than going down the M6, you can drive through like some country roads near Alderley Edge.
Yeah.
Let's ride.
And for some reason, like whenever we drove back to Manchester, they'd always go that way. I don't know why. I
absolutely hate country roads at night. I find that quite terrifying, to be honest.
I never used to until this.
Until this film.
There was like a news segment on, and they were talking about the scariest film ever made, or the scariest film since The Exorcist, I think they were saying. And they were talking about how people were freaking out about it in cinema. So already I was like, oh God, what the hell is this film? I don't want to watch it. It sounds horrible. But then, like, as a kid, curiosity really got the better of me and I needed to know what it was. So I obviously never got to see it in cinemas because 1999, I was a redacted age at that point. But my nana, she shout out to Di because she gets brought up a lot in this. She worked at a Blockbuster and
I'll die.
I remember seeing it and I was like, oh, I want to watch it. And she was like, you're already scared of this. You haven't seen it.
Logical, speaking facts.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't. And she knew the hype around it as well. And she was saying everybody's coming in and getting this video. Everyone's getting this video out. But she managed to get a copy for me through other means.
Okay.
do you know how? Do you know, like, remember those dual VHS recorders where you could tape what's on what? Yeah.
Oh my God, that must have made it actually scarier in some ways. Well, I imagine. Yeah.
Blockbuster can't sue her because they're not around anymore. So I got my own copy that I could watch as many times as I want because of that. And I remember watching it the first time, and I had to keep turning it off because I was crying. I was really scared, like really, really scared. And then at one point, I went to my mum and I was like, "Can you watch this with me, please?" My mum does not watch horror films. She fucking hates them. The only horror film my mum loves is The Lost Boys, because she does have exquisite taste. So yeah, she sat down and watched it with me, and it was good because I could hide behind my mum when I got too scared. Got to the end, I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was absolutely petrified. But then I'd keep watching it just to scare myself, because I obviously like being scared. And to this day, it still scares me. But it also sparked a massive obsession with me. So I ended up, there used to be a series of young adult books called the Blair Witch Files.
I vaguely remember those.
I saw one of them at a school fair. Do you know when you used to bring the book fairs around?
Oh my God, I used to look. That was honestly the shit. Yeah. I used to stock up on so many Goosebumps books then. Because we were from a low-income poor family. Did you get a book voucher?
I used to get book vouchers.
Same.
Yeah, I'd use it on Goosebumps and the Blair Witch Files. So anything to do with the Blair Witch, I would consume and be terrified. So that's like my backstory with it. And to this day, it's stuck with me to the point where, even though it scares me, I really want a Blair Witch tattoo.
The symbol's kind of iconic. Yeah. Like I do love that. And it's been replicated so many times since. Like it's part of pop culture now, isn't it? As much as I think shot of her with the upper nose, like, do you know what I mean? It's instantly recognizable.
I think I want it on my hand as well.
Okay.
So I can always look at it and shit myself.
Obviously watching it then, when you went into it, were you quite aware of the background of it, or like the marketing, or like the build up, or any of that?
I only knew about the build up because of hearing the radio show and stuff, but I was 100%, because this was pre-internet. Well, it wasn't pre-internet, but it wasn't the internet as we know it now.
Absolutely.
I didn't have access to the internet at that age.
No.
We couldn't afford it, and we couldn't afford a computer. So the only time I managed to get on the internet was at school, and there was a website, and the website made you think it was real as well. Like, the whole marketing around this film was absolutely genius.
100%.
And it happened at exactly the right time, because given another couple of years, you couldn't market a film like this. No one would have believed you. People would have been like, it's fake.
I'm not going to lie. I think the first time I watched it, even though it obviously was a bit late, I think me and my mum were still in that grey area of being like, is this real? Is it not real? Because not enough happens, but just enough happens, if that makes sense. I think if there'd like been this big weird creature reveal or something at the end, it would have completely taken you out of it. But I think if you watch it, like, I don't know, your mind fills in the blanks. And like I said, having our own experiences of being in the woods at night, like it's very, very well done.
I think that's another reason why it scared me so much. I've always had an overactive imagination. I was a very creative child. To some extent, I'm a creative adult, but I've always had an overactive imagination. So my mind was filling in all the blanks completely, and was filling it with the most scary shit in the world. This film was released saying that this was actual found footage. So I was completely sold. My mum was sold as well. My mum was like, I can't believe they've released this. I can't believe they're making money off these people's stories. And my mum was really, I remember it being like, oh, the poor parents, like, are they okay with it? And I was like, I don't know. I'm 9.
I don't care. No, absolutely. I mean, I think I had a similar conversation with my mum about it, and I can remember her being like, I think that's kind of maybe what convinced us it wasn't real, because we were like, surely this is illegal, like them making money off of this. But the website, I mean, the missing posters, like all of the stuff, and I mean the documentary that they made to kind of pre-curse this documentary. I know in one of the interviews, obviously in the opening of the film, there's a lady that's interviewed with the demon child in her arms.
I have a really fun fact about that really quickly. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay, go for it.
The day we are recording today, that demon child got married today. I meant to send you the screenshot, just.
You're joking.
I'll send it to you now. That demon child today, the day of recording, as if this isn't serendipity or the witch working her bastard magic.
That's creepy as
yeah. he literally got married today.
Yeah, the interview with that woman with the creepy demon child at the start.
You've heard of the Blair Witch?
Several times.
Several times. And what was the first incident?
Well, I've heard stories about her from people and neighbors and stuff like that, but also I saw a documentary on the Discovery Channel or somewhere.
Really?
Once about her, about the ghosts and legends of Maryland.
The fact that there was like legit a documentary that just further added to this very similitude that the whole marketing was kind of pioneering. I mean, I do think that the marketing is something that, I mean, it's been studied obviously for years after, and I mean, it's important that we obviously probably acknowledge as well the film blew records, didn't it? It absolutely did. It broke so many records.
It was in the Guinness World Records book for God knows how long.
I think it's still in there actually for the top budget versus box office ratio. So
well, I think I read somewhere that, so obviously it was made for 60 grand. It returned 25 mil. Which,
I think that was like pretty soon after.
I think I read somewhere, and if my maths is probably going to be off because I'm trying to remember it, for every dollar that film spent, it would make 10 grand back.
Every dollar spent, it made $10,931.
Good God.
That is insane, isn't it? So they nearly made 11 grand for every dollar that they spent. I think the total budget, for the movie was around $60,000. With marketing and everything else added on top of that, it was closer to 300 grand or $300,000 that was spent. But the film has made close to $250 million worldwide since its release, which is absolutely mental. And when I looked into this, the actors as well, which is really bad because, I mean, the film would be nothing without this cast that we have. They actually got paid $1,000 a day. So the film was shot over 8 days in total. So they made 8 grand each off this thing, and then the film made $250 million.
I'd be like, run me my fucking check.
Absolutely. Because the thing was as well, obviously, when this film came out, I'm sure when I've kind of like looked into this, the actors actually took like a step back from being in the public eye for a good while to further add to that mystery of like, oh my God, have they disappeared? Are they missing? And obviously their names and everything were the same in the film.
The families kept getting condolence cards.
Yeah, didn't have his mum kept getting sympathy cards.
Well, fun fact about Heather, she now grows medicinal marijuana.
Smoke weed every day.
I mean, I can see it. She does say, does anyone have any weed at the start of the film? So maybe she wasn't improvising that much.
I mean, I don't, drugs aren't my thing, but at the end of watching that film, I always need something.
To calm your nerves. I mean, giving an overview then of the film, essentially, if you haven't watched it, I don't know how you've not watched it, because I think every horror fan has checked this film out at least once. Yeah. Even just to kind of see what it's all about. But essentially, we follow these three friends, students. They're making a documentary primarily led by Heather Donahue, who's making a documentary onto the Blair Witch mythos in Burkittsville, Maryland. And they conduct these interviews. They're like shooting like cutaways, B-roll, all this sort of stuff. And then the deeper that they get into the woods, they then actually stumble upon some things that they think might actually be real pertaining to this myth. And obviously then shit hits the fan, the map goes missing, and then they're lost. And it just descends into chaos. And I will say, I do think the ending is one of the most chilling endings that there is out there for a horror film. And it's so simple. I mean, the whole premise and the whole execution of it all, it is so simple, but sometimes that's all you need.
Today, for the first time, watch the 4 alternate endings.
I haven't checked those out.
So there's 4 alternate endings that they shot. One of them was the same as what we get, but instead all the little stick men are surrounding Mike.
Okay.
So it's exactly the same. The other one is all the stick men are in the room, but Mike isn't facing the wall. He's facing directly into the camera with like this horrible, crazed look in his eye.
Oh, okay. I don't think I like that.
And then the third one is Mike hanging.
I think I've heard of about this one, but yeah.
And then the fourth one is Mike is like strapped to a giant stick man like crucified to a giant stick man, and they're the 4 alternate endings.
That's
the fun
cool.
thing about the 4th one is you get to see a little bit more of the basement, but not a lot. I actually watched them today.
Are you happy with the ending that we got then? Ultimately,
I'm more than I prefer. Like the ending that we got was the perfect ending.
I think so too. Actually,
it leaves it so ambiguous. But also at the same time, it feels resolved. It feels resolved, but it's also left like, was it real? Was it the witch? Was it Rustin Parr? Was he not dead? Like, what's going on? So yeah,
I think that's it. The film as well, obviously, whilst it's establishing this mythology of the Blair Witch, there's all these other stories that feed into it, obviously, of Rustin Parr and child murders. And you don't know whether or not that's because of this Blair Witch, like possessing these people, or I don't know. It's such a deeply well-established mythology that they kind of put to the audience in this film, and I think that's what makes it killer. I must say as well with the ending, I think the ending is spot on. I think listening to those options you gave me, I don't think I'd have liked the other ones.
The only one I would have liked would be the one where it's the same shot but stick men are all around. But even then, that makes it seem a little bit more.
I suppose it's a bit hokey, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think seeing them in the woods was enough. The only thing I noticed rewatching this last night, though, was I did think it ended a lot more suddenly than I remember. Like there is obviously the build up. So spoiler alert going into this now. We do obviously, once the map's gone missing and they have been lost for obviously a day or two in the woods, Josh then goes missing and we don't know where he's gone, and then it's just Mike and Heather who are on their own at the end. But I seem to remember it being a lot longer between that and then the ending, but it was a lot snappier when I watched it. I think, with these found footage films, obviously when this came out, this really helped establish a lot of the conventions we're familiar with now. So when you think of Paranormal Activity, all of those films, literally you're there for the last 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a slow build up to someone getting yeeted across the screen. And I suppose this in many ways really did kind of establish all of that, didn't it?
It did. It really, really did set the blueprint. The one thing that I really love about it as well is like, as I've grown up, still having this love and fear for the film. The more I read about it, the more I fall in love with it. So I have a deep-rooted hatred for Stanley Kubrick.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Now, bear with me on this.
Okay.
I don't like Stanley Kubrick, especially with what happened with Shelley Duvall. Like, his methods as a director are unnecessary and cruel. Now, that's because no boundaries were established from the get-go. And it was thrown upon them. Whereas these directors were looking for people and they said from the get-go, this is what's going to happen. We're going to mess you up.
Join us in the woods for 8 days and we're going to f*** you up.
They literally said, look, it's going to psychologically mess with you. And that's what we want to do as directors to get the best out of you. They established that from the get-go, which is really cool. The audition process was really cool when I was reading about that. They asked each person who auditioned, you've been in prison for 25 years. You are appealing to be on parole, to be let out. You've got to improv that.
Wow.
And they did. And if you stuttered, if you stopped once, they'd be like, I'm really sorry, but we are looking for people with high improv skills. Now, Heather did something different than any other actress who came in and was like, I don't think you should let me out. I don't think you should let me out for parole. And that's what nailed her the audition. So there's that.
Amazing.
Finding out that, and then finding out that 2 of my favorite shots from the film were completely accidental as well. So the scene where they're running through the woods and Heather's saying, what the f*** is that? What the f*** is that?
Oh my God, what the f*** is that? What the f*** is that?
The cameraman was supposed to turn left and there was supposed to be a glimpse of the witch. And she just would have been like somebody in white robes. That's all you would have seen. But that never happened. And then because of that, we never see anything. And that's what makes it so perfect.
I mean, I do. Yeah. I think, it's like they took the Jaws approach. If you had have seen something, I don't think it would have been anywhere near as creepy as what your mind could put in that place.
I'm really glad you said that because I always draw parallels with this and Jaws because obviously Bruce doesn't get that much screen time and that's what makes him even more scary. But And then the second shot that's my favorite is obviously Heather's monologue to camera.
I just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom. And I'm sorry to everyone.
She accidentally pressed the zoom button, and that's why it was supposed to be her face was in, like, her full face was in frame. But when she turned the camera around, she accidentally pressed the zoom button, and that's how we get this, like, the most iconic image from the film. That that
it
was
is, isn't it?
That was on the posters. That was parodied in Scary Movie.
Can you move your fat ass? I absolutely love that scene. The CG snot bubbles are just everything as well.
Shout out to Gail Hailstorm.
3 people murdered. I absolutely love her.
But that's the thing. This has been parodied so much because it's so iconic. It's like,
I think you've done well when you get stuff like this, like so many sketches.
I want to bring up my most favorite parody of the Blair Witch Project. Is the Scooby-Doo Project.
There's a Scooby-Doo Project?
It was an actual thing. It wasn't like a fan-made thing. It was played. There was like this summer of fun or something like that on Cartoon Network. And they actually got, while they were shooting Scooby-Doo, they were getting the actors to like dial in and record this. It's literally like a shot-for-shot remake of the Blair Witch Project, but with the Scooby-Doo cast.
As in, like, the cast of
the cartoon?
The
cartoons,
yeah.
The cartoons.
I was like, if you're telling me SMG's running through the woods, you need to get on YouTube and watch it. It's incredible. Oh God, I'm getting straight on after this.
Especially the ending is actually, you're like, oh, you can't do this to my babies. I do want to talk a bit more again about the hysteria that was created with it. As we were saying, it was marketed as if it was going to be this. It was actually real. And we spoke a little bit about how afterwards, people were sending condolence letters and stuff. But actually, the fan response to this film actually informed the sequel. I'm not going to talk about the first sequel, Book of Shadows, too much, because I do want to focus a bit more on the first film first, but it actually informed the sequel to the point where people were stealing the Burkittsville sign. You were getting all these people coming in. People stole headstones from the cemetery.
I mean, that sort of stuff is just, there's no justification for that.
How up as a person do you have to be to do that? It's so disrespectful.
It absolutely is. I think, the sign was actually stolen on opening night of the film as well, and it's been replaced and stolen several times since then. So, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't mind having that sign up in my room somewhere. Yeah, obviously, it is a popular destination to go for a lot of filmmakers. I'd love to go there at some point.
I really want to go.
I'd be very respectful. I might take the odd twig or the odd rock, but that'd be about it. Do you know what I mean?
I'd take a twig. I don't. As much as I want to go, I don't think I could.
Do you reckon it'd be too scary?
Liam, I'd be shitting myself the whole time.
I've got to ask. I think it's scary, but it doesn't terrify me as much as obviously it does you. So, what is it about it that scares you so much?
I wish I had an answer. I really wish I had an answer.
Is it the unknown? Is it the fact that you don't see this thing and you've imagined it?
I don't know what it is. It just strikes a chord of absolute fear in me. So I talk about films that scare me. There's this, and then there's Host, the Shudder film that was filmed during lockdown. Was it 2020 that was released?
Yeah, it was. I mean, funny link. I know that Jed Shepherd, who was obviously fundamental in the making of Host, he's actually just visited like Burkittsville, and I don't know if he's shot some stuff out there or whatever, but I know that the franchise as a whole, they're looking to obviously really reboot that and get it going again. Don't know how I feel about it, but
it doesn't need to be done.
There's murmurs, isn't there, that these guys are going to be involved in that somehow?
I mean, there is, but I think the thing that upsets me is it's like it cements a period of time, and that magic to me is never going to be caught again. As I said, it happened at exactly the right moment for this film to be released. I suppose
that's the exact same with Host, though, isn't it? Because it literally perfectly documented lockdown and the terror that was, I don't know, being isolated, not seeing your friends, and what if you then found yourself in this horrific situation?
That film again. So that film terrifies me as well. And then the original Halloween film really scares me, not to the extent as this film scares me, but the original Halloween film really puts the willies up me.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. And I'm sure you don't mind. It's funny you say that, though, because you know how I said I think I watched this because my neighbour lent me the DVD. I think this was I watched Halloween, the original Halloween, the same week as the Blair Witch. So this was like, I can remember this being like a really impactful week of horror for me as a fan, because I watched the original Halloween film, and I know my mum like absolutely loved it. And then we watched Blair Witch, and I can remember falling in love with Halloween, but not really digging the Blair Witch as much. But yeah, I completely get it. I mean, the thing is both of those films that you've spoken about there, they're both exercises of tension. It isn't necessarily like what you see. I mean, there's hardly any gore in either of them. There's no, do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be flashy. It's simplistic. It's taking these ideas that you're familiar with, like, I don't know, going into the woods on a trail or being a babysitter or something, and it twists it, doesn't it? And makes the familiar terrifying.
I tried to rewatch Host the other week. And I couldn't. I just couldn't. I was terrified. So, fun story about that. The first time I ever watched it, there was a point where I literally screamed.
Lord, I'm having a heart attack. Damn, this is some scary shit.
Jumped off my bed, ran out the room. When I came back in, I turned the light back on. Now, films don't do this to me. Films don't do this to me at all. And I read a horror book a night, near enough. But that film just did something to me. And then when I came back in, and I carried on watching the rest. I mean, I really had to run to the bathroom. I nearly pissed myself. But I do want to give a shout out to Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, who did the original film. They're just incredible. And what upsets me about them wanting to remake it all is that they had 19 hours worth of material that they had for this film that they then had to condense down. So first it was condensed down to 2.5 hours. They showed it at Sundance, and then they had to get it to 90 minutes.
I think, isn't that the thing? I'm sure that's like a funny a bit of trivia on that is it took 8 days to shoot, but then it took near 8 months to edit. Yeah. Which is mental, isn't it?
But then, so with all the special features on like the DVD and the VHS, there's only just under an hour's worth of those. So so even when you add that to the 90 minutes, it still doesn't give you everything that we need. So I really hope that one day, and maybe in 2029 when it's an anniversary, like maybe, hopefully,
would you want an extended cut, or would you just want the full everything?
I mean, I would love the 19 hours, but no, I think a proper director's cut of this film is very deserving.
Looking at this film, the way that I kind of went into it, and I thought how I'm going to approach talking about this on this episode was the way it was made. And I do think like the way that it was directed and how it all came together was absolutely amazing. So I mean, I've got a few like kind of tidbits, I suppose, about how the film was made and some of the interesting things that they did to get like these performances. So a funny thing, obviously we mentioned the budget. One of the video cameras that was used in the film was then actually returned for a refund afterwards. So they got their money back for one of the video cameras.
That's actually iconic.
So scraping that budget back, which I absolutely love. And as a filmmaker, I completely see it. Like the amount of times we've shot something with a costume and we've kept the tag on and then it goes back to wherever the next day. I mean, why not? The actors, like you said, with the audition process, I didn't know anything about that, but of course they had to be like masters in improv because there was a rough outline, but there was never really like a script. It was never like, this is what you need to do. I know that Heather like improvised a lot, made her own opening monologue for the documentary, all of that stuff. They must have had to have like a massive trust in the actors, and the actors must have had a massive trust in them as filmmakers, because they were literally just really left to it for several days in the woods.
I think that's another reason why the believability factor was there as well. Everything felt so natural. Heather, to me, because of Heather's skills at the beginning as like when she's like reading the book on Coffin Rock, I'm like, she must have been an actual documentary person.
Absolutely pissed, because I know how much film costs, and when you watch that scene and they start rolling and immediately the book goes up and she snaps into character, it made me absolutely pissed, because I was like, she knows that's so many dollars that's just been spent right there. So I don't know. I think that again was quite funny watching it from that perspective.
Yeah.
So the directors really did take quite a distant approach to it. They were kind of like camping a fair distance away from them. They direct like through walkie-talkies, make sure obviously they didn't get lost. I think the actors did actually get lost. I think about 3 or 4 times in the woods.
3 times it happened, yeah.
Which is, I mean, that must have, I mean, to feed off that and to kind of get that energy and just feel like completely.
Well, it's in one of the scenes
intense.
where they get really pissed off that they've been like, they've been going round all day, and then like they're meant to be heading south all day, and then they end up back in the same area. That actually happened.
I mean, it's one of the best bits, though, isn't it? Because it's trippy. Yeah. It makes it feel like, I don't know, the woods are moving or something's going on.
Everything that they did to make this film made it seem believable. So the bit where they're inside the tent and you hear the children outside.
Well, this is it. I completely didn't realize that was a thing until I think I watched it last night. And that's because my sound system's a lot more decent now. Shit me up.
They never told them that was going to happen. They didn't tell them that was going to happen. So that's why. And then doing that on the tent. Oh my God. So them being confused about Josh going missing as well is they said to Josh, wait for everybody to fall asleep and then disappear. And then, so they did. And they literally said to him when he was out of earshot of everyone, oh, by the way, you're dead. And he was like, yes. It's only because he was going to, I think it was a Jane's Addiction concert. So he could finally make the date. So he's dead happy.
I absolutely thought that to myself. I thought, do you reckon that they got rid of him just because he needed to be somewhere else? Because it seems like that would be 100% believable.
I'll tell you why they actually got rid of Josh. Because originally it was supposed to be Mike who went missing and not Josh.
Oh, really?
But they did it because they didn't think, because obviously Josh and Heather in the film are really good friends. And then in the original edit, they were supposed to be ex-boyfriend, girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Interesting. You can see that dynamic, I suppose.
Because of how much they're bickering, they didn't want that to carry on in the third act, because they think the audiences wouldn't have responded to it well. So that's why in the end they decided we'll kill Josh off. But yeah, when Josh found out he was dying, he was dead happy because he was like, oh, I didn't think I'd be able to go to this concert, and now that I can. I'm over the moon for him.
The other kind of couple of bits that I found really interesting that the directors employed as ways of getting these incredible results out of their actors is, I know that they fed them less and less every day. So naturally, obviously, people were more tired, energy levels were lower. I think, I don't know, you don't feed me, I know I'm going to snap at you. So Heather's very angry in this film. You can see that. The actors as well thought that the legend was real whilst they were making this whole thing. And they only actually found out after the fact that the filmmakers had made this whole thing up. The other funny thing that I absolutely loved reading up on and finding out was I'm personally not a fan of actors like method acting. I don't think it's necessarily needed. I know you have the greats like Daniel Day-Lewis, but Jared Leto, I'm looking at you. I think you're an absolute knob. They chose, and I understand in this scenario, I think it did make sense because they were living it for 24 hours a day. Like they were constantly in this arena. So they did stay in character for the entire shoot. I think it was only a couple of times that they broke character. And their safety word was taco. Which I find absolutely hilarious because that's also my safety word. So the last bit that I just think, you know how we've spoken about stars aligning for this film, is the fact that the last day of shooting was actually Halloween night, and that was because they ran out of battery power the night before because of the lights. So they needed to recharge everything and they needed to stay an extra day. But I just think, how incredible would that be shooting this film on Halloween night in the middle of friggin' nowhere in the woods? I mean, I don't think they would have known what such a cultural phenomenon this would have been, but surely they must. I don't know, it must have been electric, like being in that.
I can't imagine
in the midst of
it must have been like when the world caught onto it, and like
it must have been intense.
Because to me, they should have made it. Like especially Heather, and not to discredit the boys, but I think Heather's performance in this, it should have shot her to stardom. To me, I feel like if I employ an actor who can make who can not only like everything she was given, she ate up, but that monologue, for the fact that it was improvised and her reactions were improvised, that's like
I don't think
raw talent that you can't.
I say this all the time. I don't think horror actors and actresses get anywhere near enough of credit for their performances. Not. And I mean,
and when they do, it's very few and far. Like the only ones who can spring to mind for me is like obviously Jamie Lee Curtis. Her career skyrocketed.
Even then, she was reluctant to lean into that horror, wasn't she? She's like, I'm only going to do so many horror pictures, and then I need to move on, otherwise I'll be typecast. I think I am surprised, that they didn't go further. But then I think that's kind of part of the curse of found footage is it works because they're unknowns. If you'd got someone like Scarlett Johansson in the driver's seat and she was playing Heather, like it would not have worked because it's not real. So you need these unknown actors. I mean, even the likes of like the people involved with Paranormal Activity, I mean, I don't really think they've gone on to do much else than be in the sequel.
No, but I tell you what, if you watch the In Search of Darkness documentaries, Katie does appear in those, and she's.
I mean, credit to them. I think they're great as well.
She's got such a great knowledge of the genre. So shout out to Katie. I love hearing it. I don't know what it is about this film, but to this day, it gets under my skin. As I said, I haven't watched it in prep for this. I know the film at the back of my hand. I like to believe, but it. But I couldn't watch it because I knew like work's busy at the moment and I can't afford a sleepless night. It genuinely terrifies me. And I've played the PlayStation game, the Blair Witch game.
Okay.
I've played it before, and last night I was like, I might watch a bit of playthrough with it. No, it's turned that off. So.
I mean, I think this is a good point maybe for us to then move on to maybe the sequels, expanded universe, that side of things then with Blair Witch. And I know you're giving me evils already, so I think this is going to be a rare occasion, Liam, where we don't necessarily agree on something on the podcast. So get ready, guys. It's going to get savage.
Yeah. The studio, like the studio execs were just like, we need to make a sequel. Everyone loves it because obviously Hollywood just sees something and think milk, money. So they made Blair Witch 2, The Book of Shadows, which in hindsight, I enjoy it a lot more than I ever did. I think it's because when a sequel is announced, I was expecting more of the same.
Yeah.
But more of the same wouldn't have worked. And
I respect that they took a different approach to it.
And I watched a great video essay on it last night where it explains how it was actually surprise, studio interference gave us a completely different film. The Book of Shadows, it's supposed to be a commentary on the phenomenon of the Blair Witch Project and the effects that it has on like the small towns that they choose for locations. And from what it sounds like, the original film, like before all the messy involvement by the studio, sounded incredible. But what we got was a confused mess of a film that didn't know what it was. And it's a shame because it had a lot of potential. So
I think the film, if I'm being honest, it was the first time I watched it. I think it started out really well. And I thought it was hilarious when there's an interview with a woman and she's like, because Burkittsville's become so busy with these horror fans. She's like, I can't go outside without putting on a full face of makeup and a nice dress. And I was like, this film I can definitely get behind.
Icon.
And I mean, the soundtrack's great. I like that. I loved the goth girl character. I thought she was great. And it was nice that I'm always interested in this debate of like life imitating art and horror movies informing like psychopaths in the real world, because to me, I think it's a complete load of bullshit. I think you're just messed up to do bad things. I don't think it takes a horror movie to do it, and that will always be my stance. But I thought it was a really interesting opportunity to provide commentary on that, but then it did devolve into, I don't know, I did find myself quite bored towards the end, and I was glad it was over. But I think it will be one of those films, if I do ever revisit it, it is like a cult classic, isn't it? It's kind of so bad it's good almost in places.
Well, as I said about studio meddling, so take the opening of this film, we get this sweeping shot of the Maryland wilderness to the sound of Marilyn Manson's Disposable Teens. Now, back in the day, I was a huge Marilyn Manson fan. Not so much anymore because he's a trash human being. But
glad you said it.
Alleged
trash human being.
Originally, to set the tone up of this film, that was supposed to be Frank Sinatra's Witchcraft.
Oh,
what a song. And also Hocus Pocus song is what he sings when there ain't no nicer witch than you.
That would have been so vastly different.
Yeah, a completely different tonal shift. The scene that, like, the really graphic violence scene that you see them all like stabbing people and stuff was never supposed to happen. That happened during reshoots because the studio were like, this doesn't feel like a horror film. Do you know
what the flashes of violence that we get at least 18 times?
Yeah, the interviews weren't supposed to be sporadic. It was all supposed to be.
I mean, there was kind of part of me that was like, oh, I do like that it's not like a conventional narrative. It's got like these flashbacks and stuff. I mean, that's the sort of shit that I love in like a Tarantino movie. Like, I like that maybe sometimes when the film opens with the ending and then you're like, okay, we're going to see how we get there. I mean, like X, for example, I liked that. We saw all the bloodshed and we were like, okay, shit's going to go down. We know something bad's going to happen. I think it was very, very confusing. It was very apparent. It was rushed and it was done to make money.
Well,
and that was it.
And also, so they were actually really clever, again, with the marketing of this because, I can't say it because my brain's frazzled, but whatever the word is for reverse backwards, S reverse. Yeah. Anyway,
insert a clip of Missy Elliott here.
On the website, if you pick it up during the film, you can watch, and in certain scenes, you'll see the word no on a window in the background, these characters. And you'll notice it, and you think nothing comes of this. However, if you type in all of these like words into the website that you found during the film, there was a little Easter egg and all that stuff, which was great.
I love shit like this.
They did something great with that, but again, that's the only good. That was on the director's part. That wasn't a studio thing. I said I don't want to talk about Book of Shadows too much.
I'm happy to put a pin in that right now. To be honest,
because look, if you want campy, weird, not so great horror, watch it. But then I really wish I could remember the YouTube person who I watched last night who was like in defense of it. Go onto YouTube and watch In Defense of Blair Witch Book of Shadows. And they actually talk about, it's not a bad film.
I was talking to last month's guest, Craig, about this film while I was watching it. And he was saying, hi, Craig. He was saying, don't go into it thinking it's going to be another Blair Witch. And I think it didn't help that I did watch The Blair Witch and then I watched this directly after, because they are two separate beasts completely. But I think if you do go in it with low expectations, a lens of it being maybe more fun and campy, and I mean, the soundtrack's great. You've got some good characters in there as well. It's not all bad. I've definitely seen worse films, but it is kind of sad it's associated, I think, sometimes with the legacy of this great film.
Yeah. In 2016, we got a reboot of the franchise in just Blair Witch, it's called. Now, when the trailer came out for this, I can't do a backflip, but I could have done a backflip.
How did you get into this one then? Because I actually stumbled upon this when it was entitled The Woods. And I will say, this is obviously something, it's nice that you mentioned obviously the stuff with the Book of Shadows, because I didn't know that. But I think what's good about all of these films has been that the marketing's been super strong. And I mean, credit to Lionsgate for marketing the shit out of these things.
I watched a trailer for what was called The Woods at the time, and I thought, this looks interesting. And then when it was like announced that this was,
I mean, the reveal was incredible.
It was.
I mean, the event at Comic-Con that they held, and switching out the posters while the audience were in the screening, and then coming out, and then it being like, I mean, can you imagine being in that theater?
No,
I'd flip my shit.
Liam, I'd have like done the splits. I'd have done a death drop then and there. And not to coin a quote, I would have swifted the floor with my teeth.
Again, goddamn, every episode.
I lost my shit a bit, and I thought
I did like that. I thought that was really cool, and it was very much in the vein of the original with that.
So I went to see this film like opening day.
Oh, okay.
I had to go see it because it was a direct continuation of like one of my favorite horror films.
Yeah.
And the premise was really interesting, that it was like Heather's brother going to look for us. Some new footage had found. So I was like, oh my God, I need to see it, even if it's just for like the fan footage. And this film, I will say, up until a bit of the second act had me. I thought it's in the same vein. I really like the use of modern technology happening in this. The scene with the drone, I thought was incredible. As soon as the drone bit for me was probably maybe the highlight of the film for me. But then when too much was being explained, I started to lose interest.
So it fell apart for you a bit in the third act, is what you're saying.
So when we found out that like time jumps were happening, that wasn't my thing. But when the bit that got me was when they're running, when I saw the house, I was back in. When I saw the house, I was back in. I was like, oh my God, somehow they've rebuilt the house, because that house got demolished.
Yeah.
There was actually the fun.
It doesn't surprise me. To be honest.
There was. They were going to demolish it, but then there was a petition from fans and a crowdfunder from fans to keep it up.
Yeah,
which happened, but then too much shit was going down, and too much. Then they're just like, no, you know what, them kids, knock it down.
Get rid.
As soon as I saw the house, I was like, oh my God, like they must love this so much that they've gone to rebuild the house, and I can't wait to see what's in there. But then it pans to the woods, and you see something. You see a creature. I was done. I was like,
I think that's the divisive bit, isn't it? Is the fact that this is a film that does deliver a glimpse of something.
At that point, I was like, no. And even, do you know the bit where she's crawling through like the crawl space? That bit, okay, I was like, okay, this is a really lovely shot. It's terrifying. But then I saw far too much for me to enjoy it.
I will say, because I'm an absolutely massive fan of this film, the 2016 Blair Witch film. I absolutely loved it. I went to see it at the cinema as well, and I've got to say, you know, there's certain films that like kind of stick with me, and this, for like the sound design, absolutely stuck with me. Like,
oh yeah,
the way that they credit to obviously the team behind that, the way that the woods sound. I mean, this is very much, and I mean, even the original film, and I think that's what I loved about it. It was mainly about the sound. Like it was dark. You didn't know what was beyond the trees that you could see past.
Just the snapping of the
twigs and all of that sort of stuff. I thought that was incredible. The employment of the new technology, like you said, with the drones and like GoPros, all that sort of stuff. It felt appropriate. It felt right. It was nice. I think there was a nice continuation of the mythology for me. I personally found the concept of them waking up and it being morning, but still pitch black, absolutely terrifing. I thought that was really
scary. Yeah. When I say time shifts, it's when that.
Do you mean the lights? Do you mean that? That bit?
No, when the time shifts is when that bloke comes back visibly aged.
Like, yeah. I mean, he was probably my least favorite part of that film, I will say. But Callie Hernandez, who plays Lisa, who's the main female protagonist, I thought she was shit hot, honestly. There's a scene that, you know, particularly obviously at the end, the bit where she's in the crawl space. I watched some behind the scenes on that, and they actually built these tunnels, which I think the thinnest part was it 23, 24 inches wide. So it was obviously
I'm okay than that.
Literally, I can't get a leg in that. And the funny thing is the cameraman who was in there shooting with her actually had a panic attack, and they had to get him out because it was that claustrophobic. And you see that in the film. I think it's impeccable. It reminded me of The Descent, like, you know, that moment when she gets stuck. It's just,
that's another film that does scare me quite a bit.
Yeah. I personally didn't mind seeing the creature, and I liked the writer's explanation that this actually still wasn't the Blair Witch. The theory is that this is Ellie Kedward, who herself actually maybe isn't the Blair Witch, because the mythology of that predates her. And I liked the fact that it was this elongated limb-looking motherfucker who was maybe her stretched on like a rack, and her limbs were distorted, and I liked it.
The legend of Ellie Kedward in the Blair Witch was she was hung from a tree with rocks tied to each limb, which dragged them down. So I'm a nerd for Blair Witch mythology. I really am.
I mean, so I thought that was quite cool, because I think anything, like they do show. And I mean, it is kind of silly. I don't think you see it all that much. I liked that it kind of harked back to the original ending with them being in the corner. I personally didn't mind it. I thought the marketing was great. The setup was great. I think this gets a really bad rep because when you look at it compared to the other Blair Witch films, obviously the original is most highly rated amongst everyone everywhere, but this isn't too much of a step ahead of Book of Shadows, and I think that's a travesty because I think it's miles better for sure. But that's just me.
I appreciate the filmmaking behind it, absolutely. Like I can really appreciate it as a very well-made film. It looks gorgeous. It's you nailed it on the head with the sound design, and that goes for the original too. The sound design is absolutely stunning. But yeah, to me, did it just
give you too much? Like it showed too much? It
gave me too much. Yeah. So I can watch Blair Witch and not be scared. It doesn't scare me in the slightest. And maybe it's because I see something. I
think it does. I think I can remember absolutely shitting myself and jumping out of my skin so many times at that film. So I don't know. I don't know. We're kind of almost inverted with it. Like your experience of Blair Witch initially terrified you, mine didn't, but then this one did, but it didn't for you. So I don't know.
So what makes the original film a lot scarier now as an adult is a theory that I never knew about because I was a child. But the theory, there's a fan theory that the original Blair Witch was actually the premise of it was all set up by Mike and Josh, because Josh and Heather had split up, and Heather had broken Josh's heart so much that he actually found this guy, Mike. They set up this whole thing in the woods just so they could kill Heather. I
mean, that is awful.
That is petrifying.
You could still actually read it as that, very much so.
You could still read it as that. I don't. My reading of it is the witch is real.
Obviously.
That's absolutely chilling when you think of it like that. Because especially the ending, because then you're like...
Yeah, like Josh is around the corner whacking her.
But you also then think, whose teeth was in that bundle?
Ugh.
In real life, they got it from a dentist, and it was Josh's real hair. So it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know there was some real parts of Josh in there, wasn't there, in that bundle?
Yeah. There is a game out there called Blair Witch, and I'm not a horror game person. I'll play horror games, but I won't enjoy them. Horror games terrify me. Out of all horror medium, I can sit there and watch horror films all night. I'll read horror books, not get scared. I will play a horror game and absolutely shit my pants.
Were you excited when the game came out then? Because obviously you knew the film alone terrified you.
Yeah. So I haven't completed the game to this day. I won't play it. I've watched playthroughs of it, but it still scares me. But the game is really incredible. It can be finished in 6 hours. I was reading that it can be.
Okay.
There are loads of different endings, and small choices in the game determine what happens later on. Like if your phone will go off in the game and you can answer the phone, but if you don't answer the phone, that'll have an impact.
Is it a bit like Until Dawn then? So it's kind of like a spider web of
kind of, but it's unlike Until Dawn. The ending doesn't go in a completely different direction and disappoint you.
I was going to say, the difference is that it's good. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So and you go around and you collect different VHS tapes in it, and you collect like red ones. The main character discovers the ability that if he collects these red tapes, he can actually distort time around him. Well, obviously, that wouldn't work in a film. It works in a game because it's a game. It needs kind of mechanic. But the blue ones, the blue VHSs, give you more backstory and lore, and it's just.
And is it all canon then as well from the video game? Is it canon with the mythology of the films?
I suppose it is. Yeah,
and I think they were involved though, weren't they? The filmmakers in the game.
The best part of the game is the dog. You get to have a dog. You get to have a dog, and your dog helps you.
See, I think I'd take some comfort in having a canine friend with me through all of this.
Well, say that. There are some areas where you have to take control of the dog because there are areas where it's too small for you to go into, and it's got like dog camera. No, what got me? So obviously, I'm already scared playing this game because it's the Blair Witch, and that scares me already. I'm not walking around the woods on my own. I've absolutely not. But what got me, there was one bit where you hear all these noises, and this game, just for the sound design alone, I think it was won or nominated for its sound design.
Okay.
There was a bit where there was just these noises, and it said to escape, use your flashlight, and I was like, nope, and I never went back to it.
So your poor character's just stranded in this absolute hell.
Yeah.
I think that concept terrifies me, that computer game characters are stuck where you leave them. But
I think if you're into horror games, survival horror games, it's definitely worth checking out. A lot of people don't enjoy it. They thought it wasn't what it was going to be. They thought it was going to be a complete linear narrative and just complete just wandering through the woods, and they didn't think it would have this time jump thing. But because the time jumps are linked to VHSs in the game, it kind of
makes sense.
It makes so much sense. I'll probably never play it again.
I mean, to be honest, I might do the same as you and just watch some kind of gameplay. Yeah. I think that maybe kind of sates my appetite with that. I think that the unique thing about the Blair Witch, though, is the fact that it was such a unique phenomenon. And I think, unfortunately, that will be its downfall as well. I don't think it is a series, and I think they will struggle to make it a franchise.
If they try and do it again, they'll obviously go back to its roots. They'll try and do a found footage. They'll try and find, new ways that we can do found footage. And I just think
what I wouldn't be opposed to is it maybe being presented like a Netflix documentary, if it's maybe kind of done a bit like that again, just because, I don't know, I'm a sucker for true crime documentaries.
I'd like that. It's particularly, I was a massive fan of the books. There was these young adult books by an author called Cade Merrill, and they were the Blair Witch Files. Now, the first one I got was the first one in a series. It's called The Witch's Daughter. It expands on the mythos. And it's still terrifying. I might reread them now. Not now, not while we're recording.
Goodbye now.
But they expanded it, and the way I was like, I think this would work. These books, I was like, they'd be a really good series if they were presented hate to bring this up, but 13 Reasons Why. If it was presented like that, and you find another tape and you find out more, and you find another tape and then you find out more.
Yeah, that could be quite cool. I like that.
But I think if they are going to reboot it,
well, they're definitely talking about it, aren't they? I don't know.
They're going to have to decide whether they're going to go down Are they going to go down the route of casting a load of unknowns, which they kind of did with the 2016 one too? I don't think I recognised anyone. Or do they go big names? Because will they get what's her name from everything we've seen her in lately? Jenny Ortega. Or do they get Kelly Rowland?
Friday!
I
was waiting. I was thinking, I think he's forgot this episode, but no, goddamn, she's still here.
Do they get they're in the woods, and it's kind of like the scene in the original film which terrifies me. Again, when you hear Josh screaming in the distance, can they just hear Freddy?
Or,
did you hear that?
Can you imagine if Heather's running and she's like, what the hell is that? And then it's just Kelly Rowland getting yeeted.
Yeeted into a tree.
That would have made it. The cameraman does pan to the left on this shot, and it's just Kelly Rowland just shimmying down the tree. The way she hits that tree just makes me absolutely howl. But, bless her. Yes, well, I'm glad Kelly's still around. I mean, horror icon phenomenon.
Come on the show, Kelly, please.
I suppose wrapping things up then on the Blair Witch side of things, I know that we do have a couple of kind of funny stories, or at least associated with Blair Witch. I don't know if you want to kind of kick things off.
I say the Blair Witch Project is a dark, f***ed up allegory of The Wizard of Oz.
Okay, is this where we find out that it's queer?
Got my way when you see me. I'm rolling with the LGBT.
Yeah, well, it is anyway. If you think about it, it was the underdog film that ended up being fabulous. So there's already the link. But also, so if you think about it, take Dorothy out of the equation. Think about
Dorothy's gone.
The three companions. One of them is looking for a brain. They're not very good. And then gets dismantled halfway through the film and ripped apart. That's Josh. Josh is and Josh is looking for a brain in the film. He's like the guy who's like wants to know more and he wants to be proven wrong and all this that. So there's the brain. Heather is the Tin Man. She wants a heart. She's broken up with Josh and she's putting her all into this project because she has so much love for it. She's out there looking for a heart. She's looking for her connection. And then you've got Mike, who's the cowardly fucking lion because he's a knobhead.
Right.
Mike's the cowardly lion. He's trying to find his courage. He never finds it, but he's the one who wimps out. He's the one who like, I kicked that fucking thing into the creek. He's the cowardly lion. Dorothy's the witch, obviously.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like a little dark allegory for like follow the yellow brick roads. They follow the compass south, and it still doesn't get them to where they need to be.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think
all the
you're
way
wrong.
through it, they're saying they can't wait to be home. There's that bit where they're talking about how much they like, they can't wait to be home. There's no place like home. It's a dark allegory for the Wizard of Oz, and that's what makes it inherently queer.
Smashed it. Absolutely smashed it. I have been corrected. I did think, how is he going to do this? But you've pulled it off and then some.
Everything's a little bit gay.
Hey! Can you imagine the Blair Witch? It's just absolutely fabulous.
No. So, okay. The reboot. They speak to that old woman from the first film. Who's like
everything,
and she was covered
clutching the book,
like a fur, like a dark fur, like a horse fur, but. It's just the Blair Witch with bundles. She's just got it's just a woman with really long hair. I'm talking like 70s Cher hair, and she's there like swinging it back and forth.
Inches.
She's T.S. Madison, 22 inches. I feel Puerto Rican in this, honey. Rican. Bitty 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 bam bam.
I can't. But yeah, I would absolutely love that.
And then the Blair Witch is Cher, and then in the end it is just the Cher Witch Project. It's come full circle.
Come full circle.
Oh.
Well, I suppose my funny anecdote about the Blair Witch Project is I revealed in the previous episode where we talked about Scooby-Doo with the Bitchcraft and Faggotry podcast that I had a funny story about Bump in the Night, but I did GCSE drama at school, and I will say I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great, and our GCSE drama piece actually had to be. There was two. There was an improv section, and then there was, of course, a derived like dramatic piece we had to do.
Yeah.
The derived like dramatic piece was a continuation of the film, so we picked up directly where the film left off. And I think how you've obviously said that you hate him, but I played Mike in this situation. And I can remember we basically all just got like our teeth pulled, and I can just remember it being like really dark and like, I don't know. I can remember us always like joking about the fact that every piece of drama we had to do revolved around death, and we were always like, I think something's going on here. But the improv scene, we had to be in like a community hall, and like we were the parents of the missing kids, and I actually played Heather Donohue's mum.
Wow.
And I could just remember I was just channeling my inner Heather, and I was just screaming and
snotting and box stepping.
Yeah. I think that the guy who was the mayor just absolutely hated me because I was going in. I was an angry mama bear in that piece.
Well, you talking about GCSE dramas just reminded me of
just imagine it, Jesus.
Well, for my GCSE devised drama piece, me and my best friend at the time, Nikki, we came up with this dark comedy about two women in an abortion clinic. Bear with. Well, it's not.
Why are we all so dark? It wasn't teenagers.
It wasn't an abortion clinic. It was like a fertility clinic. One had gone in to get an abortion, and one had gone in for IVF. And it was like this dark.
The same
comedy.
Place.
Yeah, because that makes sense, right? That's how the world works.
Oh my Lord.
And they were in beds next to each other, and that was the whole thing. I got an A star for it because obviously it was incredible. I wrote it because, I'm the best. It was like my drama teacher had to be like, you need to cut a lot of this. This is like dark. Like, there are things that I don't think the invigilators are going to laugh at. I would, and you would, but she was like, but they're not going to laugh at that. And I was like, oh, okay. Oops.
Putting you on the right path. I think, oh my God, drama was such a f***ed up but hilarious space to play in. I think partly that's why I got into making horror movies, because it was soon after that.
Then I got to A level. And I did a whole piece about a real life murder and abduction of a girl.
Yeah. It's never nice stuff, is it?
All the dialogue was made up of real life quotes from serial killers. And
this explains a lot.
The piece ended in me in a dress that slowly got dirtier and bloodstained throughout the whole piece. And I pretended to hang myself at the end.
Oh, yeah. I think there was an element of physical theatre to our Blair Witch piece. I think we got hung off a tree, which was just like, you know, the kids who didn't really want to be there in drama, they got to play the trees and we'd hang ourselves off those. Do you know what I mean? They were like, I was supposed to be in an engineering course, but I've been given this. You're like, you can be a tree, Dave. It's oh God, that takes me back. It was never nice stuff though, was it?
Oh, speaking of witches, at GCSE drama, we also did The Crucible.
We did The Crucible. Is it Bathsheba? Is she in? Is there a character called Bathsheba?
I don't know, but is her name Sarah, the little bitch one, who turns out to be the one who stirred it all up?
I can remember. I think I bit the head off a chicken. I'm sure I did.
I was the one who like turned out to be like shagging the local preacher and stuff. I played a girl.
Yeah. We both did. I mean, to be fair, there's not many male roles in The Crucible, is there? So.
I didn't want to be John Proctor.
No.
It sounds like John proctologist. Proctor. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anyway, I'll put a pin in that because I believe that you want to test my Blair Witch knowledge.
I do indeed. I thought this would be a good time, seeing as this is your episode. You've picked the film. I just want to show if you really know your stuff about this. And I have a feeling you're going to do quite well with this. Okay, but there's 6 questions and then multiple choice. Okay, so you guys can play along at home as well. I'll give you the answers as we go along. All right. Okay. So question number 1. According to the introduction of the movie, in which month did the 3 students set out into the woods in 1994? Was it A, October, B, September, C, November, or D, August?
So October.
Ding, ding, ding. It was indeed. According to the introduction of the movie, it is October. There were Halloween decorations visible in several scenes before they actually entered the woods. The movie itself was released in 1999. Okay, nicely done. You're 1 for 1 so far. I think you're going to ace this, to be honest.
Hope so.
Question number 2. According to the introduction of the movie, what happened to the footage taken by the student filmmakers? Was it A, lost forever, B, found purposefully destroyed and later meticulously repaired, C, unintelligible, or D, found 1 year later?
It was found 1 year later behind it. They found it behind a rock. They found it behind some rocks.
Ding, ding, ding. Correct again. So according to the spooky introduction of the film, the footage was found 1 year after it was shot. There is no mention of how the footage was found, which would have been quite interesting. One may argue that the footage is unintelligible at times, but that was never present in the introduction.
Fun fact, it later gets explained how it was found. It was found behind a wall where there was no way that somebody could have sealed it up because it was actually within the foundation of this building that they found it at. Are
you out Trevoring my trivia? Is that what you're doing?
So is that what you're doing? Just something that I found there.
No, nicely done. I mean, again, creepy as balls. Question number 3. What movie did Mike use as a basis of his decision to head east or west when prompted by Heather? Was it A, Pet Sematary, B, North by Northwest, C, The Wizard of Oz, or D, Carrie?
The Wizard of Oz. I'm just going to go for the gay one.
It was indeed The Wizard of Oz. He asked Heather which witch was bad, east or west. She replied that the Wicked Witch of the West was the bad one. Mike replied, we should go east.
And there we go.
To be fair, I thought that was going to be a link to Wizard of Oz. Question number 4 then. Who kicked the map of the woods into the creek? Was it A, Mike, B, Josh, C, Heather, or D, Sheila.
It was Mike. The Sheila.
You know Sheila. You know Sheila with the press-on nails. It was indeed Mike. Well done. He thought the map was useless and Heather didn't know what she was doing. So when he confessed this to the others as they stumbled around trying to get out of the woods, Josh and Heather became insane with anger.
I have some more fun trivia there. In the deleted scenes, you actually find out, do you know where Heather and Josh are arguing with one another? And he's like, I gave you back the map, Heather. I gave you. There's actually a scene that shows that he never did and he was bullshitting, and Heather, he actually had the deleted scene, it explains how Josh actually crumpled up the map and chucked it on the ground, and then Mike kicked it into the creek.
So they're both responsible. I do love the fact that she turns around to Mike and then goes, if we die out here, it's directly because of you. Yeah. Fully shifting the blame.
All men are trash. All men are trash.
All men are trash. Question number 5. In the beginning of the movie, Heather bragged that they had enough battery power to run what? Was it A, Burkittsville, B, New York City, C, a third world country, or D, their university?
Third world country?
Ding, 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 ding. It was a third world country. Heather said this in the car as they set out for Burkittsville. They lost their lives long before they ran out of battery power or film. Which is kind of funny when we go back to how it really happened and they needed an extra day in the woods because of batteries. But hey-ho, I did find that line quite funny because I was like, they've just explained away the fact that they're in the woods for all this time and they don't need to recharge. So nicely done. Question number 6 then. Why did Josh blame Heather for being hunted by the witch? Was it A, she got them into this mess, B, she had carelessly lost the map, C, she didn't know how to read the map, or D, she stole a trinket belonging to the Blair Witch?
It's the last one. You stole that weird stick thing.
Ding, ding, ding. You've done it again. I think you're 6 for 6 on this. I think you've got them all right. So yeah, she stole a trinket belonging to the Blair Witch. We don't actually see Heather take the trinket, but Josh blasted her for it later. As he did so, he filmed her all the while telling her what her motivation is, like any good director. So, I mean, you know your shit. You know your shit. Well done.
I love this film.
Absolutely well done. Nailed it. So I hope you played along at home, and I hope you did as well as our Liam did, because he did very, very well.
They can try, but I'm incredible.
You aced this test. This test. Well done. I suppose then this brings us on to our usual part of the podcast where we talk about recommendations for the month.
Yeah.
Or I suppose this is a little bit different being a Pride episode, but we do have some recommendations relating to the subject of this month's episode. So I'll let you take the floor, Liam.
So I've mentioned it several times already, but there is a book series called The Blair Witch Files by Cade Merrill. They are incredible. They are aimed towards young adults, but I think that's just because there's not blood and guts. They're actually really good reads, nice short reads that really do expand on the mythos. I highly suggest reading the first one, which is The Witch's Daughter. It's really creepy.
Are they in a similar vein to like the Goosebumps books then? Or are they a bit more mature?
I'd say a little bit more mature than Goosebumps. But yeah, I really enjoyed them. The Witch's Daughter is the one I think about the most because on the original covers, it's just got this haunting image of an androgynous looking person with like electric blue eyes. But the whole premise of the Blair Witch Files are it's Heather's cousin who's recorded.
That's just my cousin.
Yeah, but then they're all laid out like actual files, like this person's
like case
memoir and all this.
stuff.
Yeah, really, really good. The whole series is great. I mean, some of them aren't as good as the other, but obviously fantastic. And I also suggest playing that Blair Witch game. If you haven't seen the documentary that aired before the film, it's widely available on YouTube, and so is the Scooby-Doo project. But watch that just to see at the time the buzz they created around this film. For any of our like younger listeners, it really is you get a sense of what the world was like before everyone had access to like smart technology and every home had the internet, because not every home had the internet.
It's such a time capsule, isn't it? That
it really
film.
is.
It just perfectly captures it all. Absolutely.
And on top of those recommendations, I don't know if it's available anymore. There used to be I can't play it now, but you know, like the Slender Man game. there was a Flash game that was the Blair Witch, but it was like set out like the Slenderman games.
The Slenderman game literally scared the absolute shit out of me when I was at uni.
I think that informed the Blair Witch sequel. So
I see it.
So yeah, I suggest you go and find all that. I don't know if you've got anything else that you want to suggest, or have I covered the lot?
My only recommendation would really be check out the 2016 Blair Witch film. I know that I know a lot of horror fans have different opinions on it, which is fair, but I love it personally, and I'd watch it in a dark room as loud as you possibly can. And I don't know, I'm excited to see where the series goes. If we are going to get anything new, I think there's plenty of ways they could do it now. Even if, I don't know, online content, I think would be quite an interesting thing. We've got TikTok.
I think a YouTube or a TikTok series would be a really cool way of going down that route,
or at least utilizing that for the marketing. Do you know what I mean? I think the initial reveal is spent now. Like, we know if we get a Blair Witch movie, it's not going to be real. The time we're in, you can just Google whether or not these people actually went missing. Yeah. And I think that was what was unique about the 99 film. It was more forums and blogs that existed then. They still managed to do a bit of a rug pull with the 2016 in terms of the marketing. So I'd be excited to see if they do something similar.
Well, any new film or new project that mentions the woods or anything in any way, I'm not going to trust it. So
I know, I'm fully expecting another rug pull moment, to be fair.
I'm expecting like a David Attenborough documentary. It's like,
here we have
this beautiful woodpecker. And then David Attenborough cocks it, and it's like, oh God, here we go.
Love it.
Anyway,
poor guy.
It's that time of the episode where I get to tell you some depraved story. It's the hookup horror section. And this week, to be on theme, this one is set in the woods.
Love it. Dim your campfires, guys. Yeah. Dim your tent lights. Get ready.
My tale starts as many others do. I'm feeling some kind of way, so I get onto Grindr to find someone to pass the time with. Now I see someone on there who I've been eyeing up for some time, so decided to shoot my shot and just go for it. After a bit of back and forth with the usual what are you into, etc., we end up agreeing to hook up. He comes to pick me up, what a gent. And I get in the car after douching with it an inch of my life, to the point where I felt like water was about to stream from my nostrils. Anyway, we have a laugh on the drive, and I lose all track of time and space when I realise we're on some country road. I ask him, oh, do you live in a rural area then? To which he says, oh yeah, I didn't mention, I can't actually accommodate tonight, but I do know a place, don't worry. So this would be the point where alarm bells should be ringing, but my mind is only set on one thing, and after remodelling my insides for this man, I'm not going to let that go to waste. We pull up in a lay-by, and he informs me it's only a short walk to where we're going. Let me pause to paint the scene for you. It's around 2 p.m. on a Sunday. It's overcast, but warm enough that you only need a light jacket. We walk for about 10 minutes through a small dirt track in the woods until we come across a clearing with some downed trees and the remnants of a fire pit. Anyway, we start getting hot and heavy and doing the deed. We're having a great time, but then I hear a rustling and a snapping of some branches. While he is inside of me, I tell him to stop because of the noise, but he reassures me that he didn't hear anything. So we carry on. Things are going well, and I'm having the time of my life, when suddenly I see a robed figure bursting through some nearby trees. I shout and tell this man to get off and get out of me, and that's when more people appear. I'm standing there with my trousers around my ankles, while what looks like the Fellowship of the Ring is stood staring at me with their mouths ajar. The Grindr hookup quickly pulls up his own trousers and tells me to hurry up, and we bolt it back to his car. So I'm shitting myself. When we get back to his car, he says, I can't believe they would do this. Smelling a stunt, I ask him if he set that up. I'm full on raging at this point and ready to punch him. He explains that his friends and himself use that area regularly to LARP, which is live action roleplay. And then it looks like they agreed to meet up without him. Yes, listener, he was more angry that his friends agreed to dress up as elves without him than he was about being caught balls deep. He then says he knows another place, but at this point, I'm not willing to be caught with someone trying to get their hands on my ring of power. So just tell him to drop me off at home. He asks for my number before I get out of the car, and I hesitate. Now, bear in mind that I've lusted after this bloke for a while, so I think it. Anyway, we do hook up a couple of times after that, without any interruptions, and he asked if he could put his LARP costume on a couple of times. Well, dear listener, it turns out he's a rogue dark elf or something like that, and I told him he could keep his ears on next time we hook up.
I love that.
Hooded figures appearing from the woods.
So they were in full costume.
They were in like full like.
I didn't know that they were in full regalia.
like full on like.
I thought you meant that they just talked to like they met up to like talk about stuff. I didn't realize that they were in
full on like. What's it called? World of Warcrafty.
To be fair, I'd be pretty pissed too if I'd have missed out on that.
Shagging in the woods and then Gimli interrupts you.
Nobody tosses a dwarf.
Good Lord. If you don't mind me asking, was that you?
That was one of mine.
I don't have to keep that in if you don't want me to. I don't mind, but
I don't mind. Dear listeners, that was one of my own stories.
I love it though. It's perfectly on theme.
Yeah, that was so right. So I'll expand a bit more now the big reveal's out there. So, yeah, I fancied this bloke for ages. And then one day I was just like, I just need to go for it. So I did. And then like, I couldn't believe my luck. So this is why I was like bypassing all the red flags, like going to the woods. I thought I was going to have like a Twilight moment and we'd come across this meadow full of bluebells, or he was going to be like...
The fact that you did this during the day as well. Jesus, the balls on you. Oh my God.
That's what he said as well, yeah. But anyway, yeah, so I'm like up against a tree. Not like up against a tree. And I
barbecue
see like...
sauce on my titties.
Barbecue. I see like this hooded figure emerge from like a thicket of trees. After I swore I could hear voices and people walking.
I mean, it's a good job you didn't shit yourself, because that would have been even worse.
I mean, like I douched that much, it was impossible. But like, and then more of them. I thought I was going to get killed.
A league of elves.
But the fact is,
I thought you were going to say that they all joined in then, and it was like some weird elf orgy.
No, that would have been.
You would have been Legolas then if that happened.
I'm back in. They'd have been exploring my mines of Moria all night. You shall not pass. A chlamydia test. So yeah, but like afterwards, I was like, I used to have this motto, and it was called "Think of the story." So that's how it. Like, no matter what was going on, I'd be like, just think of the story, and it paid off. And yeah, afterwards, I was like, you know what, I really fancy him. We're going to do it a couple of times. And one time, he said to me, he was like, "Do you mind if I put the costume on?"
Was it hot?
I was like, it was.
It was kind of hot, yeah.
It was kind of hot. Like, it was. Yeah, it was all this like weathered leather and stuff, and like he had all these like daggers and stuff, and I like fake daggers. I was like, oh yeah, it felt like I was like shagging Lee Pace from The Hobbit. I was like, yeah, this is nice. Now that, yeah, no.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Yeah. Obviously, times change, and we don't do it anymore. I'm going to send him this episode. I've still got him on it. I've got him on Instagram.
You need to send me a picture of this guy afterwards, please. I need to see what you were working with.
I've still got him on Instagram, so I might just send him this episode and be like, flashback.
Hey. Remember me. Oh, amazing. Well, you've killed it again, as usual. Thank you.
I know. Most of the stories are actually submissions, but I thought I need a wood-themed one, and I do have one. So rather than just do a call-out for one, then...
Bring your own. Here's one I made earlier.
Go for mine. I mean, there are volumes and volumes I need to go through, but...
Yeah, that's what we should do on the podcast. You should just pepper in your own stories, and I'll maybe do the same. We'll just treat this like therapy.
I don't need therapy. I've had a great time.
Well, speaking of a great time, next episode on this podcast for this month is going to be insane.
I'm really hoping he doesn't listen doesn't think, what the hell have I got myself into?
Well, with this being Pride Month, folks, we decided
Gay
that
rights.
we needed to really break the mold on this podcast. And we have none other than the wonderful Rod Thomas, aka Bright Light, joining us on next week's episode. He's going to come on. He's going to talk all things horror. We're going to talk about Cher, and we're going to talk about his career and, of course, his film of choice, Vamp. Cannot wait.
I can't wait to watch it. I've not actually watched this one yet, so it's going to be fun.
I'm excited.
Grace Jones is that it's vampires and Grace Jones in the 80s, and I'm like, okay, why have I not watched this before?
How have we not seen it?
So you'll find out our thoughts, but this is big for us because this is like, not to discredit any other guests that we've had, but this is like this is a guest who I like, I'm a fan of, like, and they've like done some shit.
Yeah, I'm fully planning on starting that episode with reeling off his resume. So
I mean, opening acts for Cher on the European tour. Worked with Elton John, worked with the Sister Sisters.
He's been on the same bill as Kylie at Hyde Park. Hello. And
most importantly, best mates with one of the greatest human beings in the world, that is Alan Cummings, who stars in Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. And if I really wish that was a horror film, so we could do an episode on that, because that is my favorite film of all time.
We'll have to see what we can do. But yeah, I'm hella excited for next week's episode. It's going to be amazing. Please tune in, everyone. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. I found this really fun, discussing one of our favorites, because we've not really done this before. We've not really done it where like one of us has picked a film and then we both get together. I've had a really, really good time. I'm very excited for next week.
I probably won't sleep tonight because we've talked about that film too much, and I'm probably going to be thinking about it. It's dark and I've got to go to the gym, so I'm probably
good luck with that.
Probably going to call my mum on the way there.
Hiya, you're right.
You're right, Shaz, you're right.
Shaz.
As we were saying, this isn't your only Pride special. You've got us 3 times in your ears this month.
Triple feature this month.
Triple feature. Oh, I get to use the word thrice. You get to listen to us thrice this year.
I don't like that. I'm not a fan.
Are you not?
No.
Oh, thrice.
That's making me feel a bit icky. I'm getting ick. Thrice.
So this is your first Pride Month special. Obviously, Pride Month's a very important month. It's my busiest, but also most important and favourite time of the year.
Booked and blessed.
And blessed. Yes. So, keeping all that in mind, just remember to follow us on all your social medias. We're on Twitter. We have some fun on there. We're on Instagram. We have some fun on there. We're in your basement. We have some fun in there.
We're in the woods.
I was going to say, I'm in your local woods, and I'm definitely having some fun in there. But so until next time, remember that closets were not made for people. They were made for monsters and babysitter killers. Bye!
Nailed it. Bye. Happy Pride Month. Bye. Bye-bye.
Hey, rights.
Podcast on the Super Freak Media Podcast Network. To show your support, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And you can find us on social media in the links in the description of this episode. Thank you for listening.